the web address and the QR code that you can scan to get to that link. And if you write questions on that page for Dr. Jones, we have more slips in the lobby that you can pick up on your way out. If you have a question for Dr. Jones this evening, people who are watching on the stream, there's a link in the Facebook event as well as the web page that goes to a Google form. We do ask that you use that form rather than putting notes in the comments section of the Facebook page because we're only able to monitor that Google form. Those, of course, who are in the room here with us this evening can fill out the question forms. Ushers will be circulating to collect those forms after this session, and we'll read the questions aloud to Dr. Jones. We would like to thank Hal Greer and Raymond James for sponsoring free admission to tonight's event. And as always, we'd like to thank Geico, who has been the official sponsor of the Grand for many, many years through thick and thin. So I know many of you probably know Dr. Jones. When he earned Superintendent of the Year back in 2019, it was really big news here in Bibb County, and everybody was pretty elated. Now I, however, moved to Macon in August of 2018, and I lived at the lofts downtown and parked in the garage down by the Douglas Theater on Mulberry Street in MLK. And I'd often see these trucks parked in the garage that had this big VIP logo on the side and wondered what company they were for. And it took me a while to realize that those vehicles were Bibb County school vehicles and that the VIP stood for Victory and Progress. And once I understood that, I was pretty impressed at the commitment was so deep they were putting it on the sides of their vehicles. But I also think this is really kind of risky because it reminds everybody, even folks that just have a casual interest in education, that the school system is trying to do. You know, the truck goes out to deliver something, sitting at the light, and people are going, I wonder how the school tests are going, or I wonder if they're learning anything. So just kind of advertising that everywhere, I really felt was really risky, but it also shows Dr. Jones and every teacher and staff member's commitment to what they're trying to accomplish. It really takes a lot of courage to make those sort of promises and make them and repeat them sort of publicly. But they're well on their way to delivering them. One of those goals was the 90% graduation rate by 2025, and they have gone from a 58.9% graduation rate in 2014 to a 79.4% graduation rate in 2019. 6 of the 7 high schools in the district have had a graduation rate of more than 80%. And you also may have heard recently that Bibb County Schools has been allocated $106 million in federal funding to assist them in mitigating the impact of the pandemic on learning and to continue to achieve additional progress. Therefore, I would guess victory in their ambitions for learning. So I'm sure everybody's curious to know more about this, so please welcome Dr. Curtis Jones.
Well, good evening. And I'm going to go ahead and take my mask off so you can hear me well. I want to thank Joe for the nice introduction, and truthfully, a lot of the information he shared is a lot of what some of you probably thought I was going to share with you tonight. I've been pretty much told that whenever I speak, I talk about data, and I talk about percentages and graduation rates and all those kinds of things. And tonight, I decided I wanted to do something different. I've been here now for about 6 years, and I wanted to be able to just share with you my overall philosophy about education and how we should be able to start viewing our schools and our school system. So that's what I'd like to do this evening, if you don't mind. And I'm sure, as you heard, the district is getting a lot of money for to address learning loss and other things, and during the question and answer period, I'm ready to answer those types of questions as well. But I want to talk a little bit this evening for about 20 minutes or so about how we're trying to create victory in our schools. As you've heard, that is part of our strategic plan. But there's more to it than that. I have been a parent of 3 children. I'm a grandparent. I have been in public education now for 24 years, and quite often there is this one question that keeps coming back over and over and over. And that question basically is this: what makes a good school? As a parent, I wanted to know that. I've never met a parent who did not want their child in a good school. I've never met a student who did not want to be in a good school. I've never seen a community leader who did not want the school system to be good. And there are a lot of different ideas about what makes a school great. What is it? And a lot of times we get caught up in things that may lead us in a different direction. And so I've been thinking about this a lot. As a parent, as a grandparent, as a professional educator, what makes a great school? And I decided to go back to my experiences. I have been involved in public education all over the world. I was involved in public education in Virginia, in Kansas, in Alabama, in Germany on 2 different occasions in 2 different locations, and in Georgia. But not just in Macon, Bibb, or Griffin, Spalding, but also in Columbus, and Albany, and Hinesville. All those experiences helped me try to figure out, what is a good school? Where do I want my children to go? In fact, on my last assignment in the Army, they sent me to Washington, D.C. And my wife said, we're going to finish the school year out, but you go on up. It was March. Find a great school for our kids, an elementary school, a middle school, and a high school. And once you find those schools that our kids can enroll, then you find the house that will let them go to those schools. Being the dumb Curtis that I was, no problem, dear. I went to Washington, D.C., called the central office. I said, how can I tell which schools are best? They said, just go on our website. We got test scores. You can download them and then look at them. I did that, called my wife and said, I got all the scores. I know what zones they're in. She said, what's the great school? I said, dear, they got hundreds of schools up here in Fairfax County. I mean, what else? What do you want me to tell you? Well, what are their test scores? I said, what kind of test scores? She said, ITBS. That's what they use all over the nation. You can use those scores. I said, well, I'm looking at the Excel spreadsheet, and those scores, the lowest one I see is 85. The highest one I see is 98. She said, don't worry about it. They're all good. I said, what do you mean they're all good? Where we currently live, you told me we couldn't live on the west side of town because the difference in scores for the schools was 3 points. The lowest score is 85. The highest score is 98. That's a bigger spread than 3. So what do you mean they're all good? She said, Curtis, you don't understand. The first place where we lived in Georgia, the ITBS scores were in the low 50s. The second place where we lived, they were in the mid 50s. The third place where we lived, they were in the low 60s. Where we live now, it's in the mid 60s. I said, mid 60s? She says, yeah, that's why we wanted you to get, we didn't want to be where it was below 60, we wanted to be closer to 65. I said, oh, these scores are above 85. What kind of scores are these? It's the percentage of kids that pass the ITBS, dummy. And that's when it hit me. That's when I learned something that people tell you today that is not true. This is going to be the first major takeaway I want you to have. People will tell you that the quality of your school should not be based upon the zip code where you live. But what I learned then, and what I have continued to learn, is where you live does matter. A good school system can do a lot to affect test scores. It can do a lot to make the schools better. But at the end of the day, zip codes matter. Doesn't mean you can't find a good school. Every school my children was in was a good school. Every one of them. And they had good teachers. And you would be hard-pressed to find any parent today who would tell you the school where their child attends is not a good school. But what is it we're looking at that tells us that? You can do like I did, and like a lot of people do. They go find ratings, and they will find something like U.S. News and World Reports. It will say, the best schools in America, here they are. Or you go find something else that's newer, like Niche, where they would say, we do it better than U.S. News and World Report. Look at our ratings. Or you may go to some magazine like Time, where they would say, Here's what great schools are. Here's what makes them great. And read those articles and then compare your current school to what they say. Or you can do like I did in 2015 when I came here, and I listened to this guy who said, my wife's a realtor, and she tells me that every real estate agent will tell families, you just need to go to this website called School Digger. School Digger rates all the schools in America, in every state, and you'll be able to tell which one's great. So I went to School Digger, and this is what it showed for Bibb County. It showed back in 2012, we were at 7%. In 2015, we were at 9%. In 2019, we got up to 17%. And so if you look at it, you can see we're improving. Our goal initially was just to get out of the bottom 10, then to get out of the bottom 15, then to get out of the bottom 20. So we're moving in the right direction, but if you have been here for a while, you know we have some great schools in Bibb, and these scores don't indicate that. Here's a second major takeaway. It's math. This is ranking one school to another. And for every school that goes up, there's a school that goes down. Because you always don't have a top half and a bottom half. You always don't have the top 10 and the bottom 10. No matter how well they're improving as a whole, when you're comparing one to the other, you're going to have winners and losers. We don't need winners and losers. My experience in the military taught me that. We had Army divisions that were all combat ready. And they were able to do their job. And we didn't compare the 82nd Airborne to the 101st, to the 24th Infantry Division, to the 3rd Infantry Division, or 3rd Army. They all had to be combat ready. So the question is, are school systems educationally ready? Are school systems able to provide good schools? I believe they can. But how do we know what a good school is? Here's how I do it. This is my granddaughter. When I was here, and it was time for me to think about what recommendations I wanted to make to our school board, what decisions would be the best for what we wanted to do, I think about her. Because I want our schools to be what I want my grandchildren to be in. In my earlier days, I wanted our schools to be what I wanted my children to be in. That's the standard that I use. And that standard tells me that I can find good schools if I'm willing to let my children go there, my grandchildren go there, my son who is a teacher teach there, my niece who is a teacher teach there, my mom who was an educator, let her be able to say, yeah, that's a good school. That's the standard. You don't get that from test scores, you get that from using your eyes, using your common sense, and being able to do a few other things. So what is a good school? How can you tell what they are? First thing is a good school has good leadership. It has good leadership from the assistant principal, to the central office staff, to the superintendent, to the Board of Education. Everyone in that line needs to be good. They need to have a vision for what education is going to be. They need to have an understanding of when you go into a classroom, what teachers should be doing, what students should be doing, what students should be learning. A good leader is able to say, I'm going to provide a safe learning environment so you don't have to worry about outside threats. A good leader is able to say, I want good people to join our school, and I'm going to recruit and retain them. A good leader provides the resources so teachers can do their jobs. And you know what? When you go into a school, you have the knowledge already to tell if it's a good leader or not. Most people are able to look at someone in the first 15 seconds and be able to tell after listening to them. You can tell if what the leader tells you is true, and if it happens, and if they deliver, if they're good or not. When you look around the school, you'll be able to look at it and say, yeah, I can see what's happening here. We all have the ability to tell when a principal, an assistant principal, or superintendent, or a school board member is doing good. You don't need to be an educational leader to do that. You don't need any extra expertise. You just need the common sense that you already have. That's what we do. The second thing you need if you want to have a great school, you knew it, is good teachers. You want teachers who have great relationships with students, who are able to get students to do the work and smile about it. Students who are willing to celebrate and take a risk and say something. You want teachers who are able to create a classroom where students have fun. You want a teacher who's able to say to other teachers, help me. Tell me how you do this. And you want teachers who are able to have students go beyond what they thought they could do. You want teachers to have good communication skills with parents and with other teachers. So when you ask them something, you understand the answer and you know you can take it to the bank. You really want to have teachers where people say, if you get a chance, ask for that teacher. And you want to have a bunch of those in the school so that people can say, yeah, my child has a good teacher as well. And every parent can tell you if their child had a good teacher or not. Here's the way I can tell you that. There was this one story I had about a teacher, and the parent came to me and said, I don't want my child in that teacher's classroom anymore. I said, why not? She said, because that teacher told my child that she was on fire, she wouldn't give her a glass of water. What? We know what good teachers do. We know what they say. We know who they are. The third thing you need in order to have a good school are good facilities. You need good facilities because when it's time to go to school, you want to be able to say to your children, that's a good-looking facility. Look at the classrooms. Look at the athletic fields. Look at the auditorium. Look at the hallways. Look. You don't have buildings that are falling down. You don't have paint that's old and peeling off the walls. You don't have air conditioners that don't work. You have facilities that you take for granted because they're good. You have facilities where you don't mind having your children go. When my wife was teaching, she told me once, she said, for once, I would just love to be able to work in a school that's not 50 years old. Why can't I ever work in a brand new school? Children want schools that look good, that are pleasing. And what you don't want is for someone, a student or a parent, to say, I really wish I was in that county next door because they have better looking schools than we do. You want good facilities. And inside those facilities, you want stuff to work. You want the internet to be able to let students get online and be able to do the work that they need to do. You want them to have 21st century classrooms. You want students to have individual devices so when they come to class, they can do the work they need. And you want it all to be seamless. It should be so natural for students, they take it for granted. They're not like we were when we first got computers and said, wow, look at that. Because that's not the world they're in today. The other thing you want for a good school is you want it to have good values. And I know you're going to say, good values? You mean that stuff they put on the poster and put on the wall? No, that's not what I'm talking about. When you go inside a school, you should be able to see what the school values. Sometimes when you go into school, you'll see all the staff wearing the same t-shirt. And that t-shirt means something. For example, it may mean that the whole school is dedicated to programs like The Leader in Me. And when you hear schools say, we believe in programs like The Leader in Me, and you see teachers wearing shirts that tell that to everyone, when you see students that come home and talk about what they're learning about with The Leader in Me, when you see all of that time and effort and energy and money being put into those programs, you see what they value. You shouldn't question what is important to the school, where are they putting their time, where are they putting their money. It should be obvious to you when you walk inside the school. Even when you see students do performances and they are able to demonstrate what they've been learning, it ought to be clear what they're learning, what's important. That's what you value. Those are good values. They're good because they're putting their money where their mouth is. You also want a good school to start strong and finish strong. Here's what I mean by that. In Bibb County, when we say we're going to bring in brand new teachers, we say, we know you don't know how to teach, but we're going to help you figure that out. We use a program called Get Better Faster. But this is a picture where we did not cut corners. This is a picture where you can see up here in the very top part, this thing in the wall, on the ceiling, that talks about Get Better Faster. And the guy you see standing there in the middle between me and Dr. Lori Rogers is the guy who wrote the book, Get Better Faster. Good schools and good school systems don't cut corners. They get the people who know what they're talking about and bring them in so you can start strong and finish strong. So what you're doing today, you can do next month, next year, the year after, and the year after. And when you hear a school say something like, we value leadership and we want our students to practice the leader in me skills and habits, you don't cut corners by just giving them a book and giving a book to students and having them write an essay and be done with it. You look here in the very back row and you see that guy with the red tie on? That's Sean Covey. He's the one who owns the company about how to do leader in me and the 7 habits for highly effective people. Good schools and good systems find out how to go to the source and use it and make it work. Good schools are the ones who would tell students not to go look up the Declaration of Independence and talk about it, but they would have them get on the internet and find it and see it and read it. And when they decide to go on a field trip, they go find it and see it for themselves. You don't cut corners, you do it right. That's what I mean when I say you start strong and finish strong. And I know you're going to laugh. Good schools also have good luck. But good luck, and luck is what happens when preparation meets opportunity. But luck is also what happens when you have schools like Skyview that are recognized at the national level for what they're doing as far as making school work, being named a National Distinguished School. It's what happens with schools like Rosa Taylor, where they're recognized for having common sense and being certified for digital citizenship at a national level. And it's where even your school superintendent or principals or teachers are recognized nationally, not for what they did individually, but for what those who worked with them were able to do and show. All those people were lucky, but it's because they worked hard, they prepared hard, and they were able to make it work. And good luck is when you're able to say, people want to know what you're doing. When I was interviewed by John King on CNN, I was amazed. And when that interview was over, I wiped my brow, sat back, and said, I'm glad that's over. But then, I got a call on my cell phone. And when I answered it, the voice on the other end said, hey, cuz, I'm still out here in Las Vegas, and I just saw you on TV with John King. It was my cousin. That's when I realized the work that's happening at these schools and what we're doing in Bibb is not just being recognized at the state level, but at the national level as well. So, what does it take to have a good school? It takes 12 years of going through different schools, going through a school system to be able to get this. 12 years of this will lead to a good education and good schools. It leads to 12 years of good experiences where students are able to say, yeah, I can pass a test, but it's where they also have experiences that are intentionally created for them to help them grow and get better, to help them analyze, collaborate, cooperate, think, use their judgment, and be able to say, based on what I have experienced, this is now what I believe. And it is based on those 12 years of belief that allow our students to finally say, these are the actions that I'm going to take. And you see it show up in their behavior, in their actions, in the things that they do. And those actions of 12 years will lead to the results that students will get. The results that they will get, results like this, where a school system that says we want to be a leader, recognized by a national agency that says these are some of the best scores we've seen in the world from advanced ed, where schools are recognized for being just national Title I schools, where all schools are being recognized for making progress because of how they work with students in poverty. A good school is able to say for scholarship, our students are getting scholarships as they get ready to go to college, and you can see some of the names. And a good school is able to say for citizenship, our students just don't focus on themselves, but they focus on others, where they're able to say, we're going to give back. On the left-hand side is where students have decided to help out with the warming center here locally. On the other side is where they decided to give blood because they recognize that no matter how much they learn, there are still others who need their help. That's what leads to good citizenship. And a good school is the one that would take care of the least of them. In some cases, our students with disabilities, where even students who need the most help get it, where you can see a rising graduation rate from 2011 all the way up to 2020. That's what good schools do. So what does a good school look like? This is what a good school looks like. It looks like a student at this school who has decided he was going to be one of those to help out the warming center, and he gets a note from his superintendent, and he's proud of the fact that he's been able to do something that he alone could not do, but he needed help from others. He's going to take that memory, go back, believe in his teachers, and continue to grow and improve. This is what it looks like after 12 years, where students are able to demonstrate that they are 3E ready. They're able to enlist in the military if they want. They're able to enroll in college if they want, or they're able to be employed, or start their own business and employ others. This student is 3E ready, a member of the class of 2021, and he won't be the only one. We will have others. That's what a good school looks like. So as I think about where we are in Bibb, as we're trying to create victory and progress and have victory in our schools, I realize it's more than test scores. I realize it's who we are, what we do. And at the end of the day, good schools are what we make them. They're what we want them to be. And we have them here. All we have to do is look and see them. Thank you very much for allowing me to share with you my philosophy and my thoughts about what victory in our schools looks like and what makes a good school. Thank you.
So we have quite a few questions from the audience,
Okay.
but I will select some. Do you have me on the? Oh.
No slips. That's good.
Awesome. Hello?
You got it? Okay, perfect. Okay, so the first question, they're all actually really thoughtful, is do you see any issues with students being retained for failed benchmarks after being virtually schooled during this last year?
So the current philosophy that we are sharing is COVID-19 was hard. We don't know what students had to go through. And we believe the decision to retain a student is a very difficult one to make. Research says you really don't get a lot by retaining students. The current guidance that we're sharing with principals and teachers is this. If the parent believes that it's necessary to retain, and if the school believes it's necessary, then in some cases, then we may be able to do that. If a student was not here for half the school year, then we may want to retain them. But it's going to be a joint decision. My overall belief is, with us knowing we have to address learning loss, and having received a large influx of money, we ought to be able to address that next year by being able to analyze the gaps that students have, work with students, and see if we can help them. Now, that's going to be a joint effort. It means that you just can't come to school and think it's going to happen when the first bell rings and be over when the last bell rings. It's going to take doing some homework. We're going to have opportunities on the weekends, after school as well, and we're going to do something that we call summer camp. Not mandatory because people are trying to pass, but because we know opportunities should be there. We're going to do our best to make it fun. We want people to join us. I'm not looking to make teachers go to summer school. I'm not looking to make kids go. I want them to go because it's what we all agree we need to do after this year of COVID-19.
Great answer. So the next one is, we've had a great elementary school experience at a Bibb County magnet, but like many families, we are concerned about middle school options. What changes might BCSD make to retain families in public schools and improve the quality of middle schools? I want to keep my child in public school, but I'm feeling pressured to consider charter and private options.
I hear that quite often, and we have made several changes to address what is being said. I said this a number of years ago, that when Bibb County stops being what some people believe is not a good school system, and you look back years later and say, when did that happen? It's going to be behind you. I think our middle schools are getting better now. What we have done in some cases is instead of having principals who are trying to figure it out on their own, we now have a dedicated principal supervisor to help principals figure out how to lead the school. Additionally, we have changed the way the day works for students, and we're able to say to them and to the principal, create individual lesson plans and learning plans for our students in middle school. We're also trying to make that experience with extracurricular activities so it becomes more about the whole student versus the individual student. So there's athletics, there's fine arts, all of that is available. And our belief is that we're also making academics more rigorous because as we learned that students in elementary school are getting better, middle school's got to pick it up and go with it as well. So think about what we did with the Leader in Me. We put it in elementary schools first, and then we moved it up to middle school. Now it's going to high school. Education is improving, and grades and test scores are improving as well. But here's what happens with us. Sometimes our highest achieving elementary students leave. When they leave, then it's not unusual to expect some scores to drop when you take some of those students away. I think some parents are going to have to be like my parent. They're going to have to say, we know it's going to be difficult. When I was going through school, it was integration, and you're going to be one of the only ones. But it's the best place for you because they believe in public education. They believed at that time in integration, and that was what I did. We're going to need some people who are going to say, I'm just going to do what Jim said on April 9th. I'm going to look and see if that school's good. Do they have a good principal? Do they have a good facility? Do they have good teachers? Do they have good technology? If they do, we're pretty good.
All right, I think this is the question that many folks have been waiting on and has been asked of us on social media throughout the week. What are the focuses that the Bibb County schools are planning to do with the $100 million that they're getting? I'm sure you expected that.
Well, we're going to buy a yacht, and we're going to go off on a love boat. In some ways, you're getting ahead of where I am with talking to our Board of Education about what those plans are. What I have shared with them so far, though, is this. We are required to set aside at least 20% of the money for learning loss. I believe that the experience that I created for principals a few weeks ago, though, is what you're going to see. I went to an elementary principal and I said, if I gave you $1 million, what would you spend it on to make your school better? And the principal looked at me and looked up in the sky and said, well, I think I would do this, this, and this. I said, I think I'm going to be able to give you $1 million next year. I want you to figure out what it is you need to do. Then I turned to every other elementary principal, middle school, and high school and said, the same question goes for you. If you had $1 million, what is it you need to do? Not central office telling you what to do, not somebody coming down saying this is what you got to do because of low test scores. What is it you and your teachers think need to be done? And we're looking at doing that. So we're going to have plans that come in, and I'm looking at about 2/3 of the money going to schools, so they'll be able to do that. This money needs to last for 2 years. We're then going to take some more of the money, if the board lets me, and we're going to keep it at the district level to fill in gaps, because there may be things that some principals don't think about. We also got to be able to support the plans that they come up with. But we're also going to make summer school work, and we're going to keep our technology where it is, because we don't want to go backwards. We're going to try to expand our virtual school option as well, because some parents think that's important and it's working for them. $100 million sounds like a lot, but I would be honest with you, there are a lot of good things that we can do, and this is an opportunity for us to be transformational, where a principal can say, over the next 2 years, here's what we're going to do with the money that we've been entrusted with. I can tell you the other thing we're not going to do. We're not going to waste it. It's not going to be something that's going to get people in jail. We're going to be able to track it, we're going to be able to monitor it, and we're going to be able to measure the results as they're coming in.
That's a really great idea. So what accomplishment in Macon Bibb are you most proud of?
I think I'm most proud of the change in culture that we've been able to put in place. When I came in 2015, I said I wanted to change the culture. Culture are those things that I shared with you earlier, the experiences that foster the beliefs that influence the actions and the results that you get. We have been able to change the way we see things. In fact, in the introduction tonight, I think you saw some of it, where we're able to say, here's what victory and progress looks like, and we're going to advertise who we are. We're not going to run from it. And I have teachers who I believe are proud of the schools that they work in. They wear their VIP pins proudly. They're willing to tell people that they work in the public school system. And that attitude is what's led them to have better relationships with students. It's hard to change the culture. And while it sounds soft, mushy, I'll be honest with you, I'm very proud of what we've been able to do. When I talk about things like Get Better Faster, Leader in Me, PBIS, which is our positive behavior interventions and supports, it's not easy to take all those things and put them across in the system and make them work. But our people have been doing that extremely well. And I will tell you that today I was interviewing some people to be assistant principals in our schools for next year. It's impressive when people come from other school systems saying, I've heard about the work you've been doing in Bibb, I want to come be a part of that.
Well, as a sort of complement to what your answer was, the next question is, what support do you need from Macon Bibb residents to help the school system?
Trust. Trust that we are trying to do our best, that we have the best intentions, that when I showed you the picture of my granddaughter, I was telling the truth, that principals and teachers have the same. We all have a bad day every now and then, but tell the good stories of things that are happening. What happens usually is one person has a bad experience and they tell that story over and over and over, and they tell it for years. I need people to take what I said about facilities, where you take them for granted, and don't take them for granted anymore. Go tell somebody how good El DeFore State Complex, Sporting Complex is. Go tell somebody about this technology your child has. Tell somebody about the computers that they have able to take on. Those things are amazing. A year ago, we didn't have students who could take computers home every day. We do now. That is a major achievement. We need to tell people, here's what we're doing, and once we start telling those good stories, they will rule out the bad. I guarantee you there are at least 7 good stories for every 1 bad, but what happens is that 1 bad story gets told 7 times. And we take for granted the good stories that are happening.
Awesome. And the next question sort of complements that one, which is, how can we better support our Title I schools in Bibb County?
Well, most of the schools are Title I. We have an excellent Title I program. I believe what we have to recognize is that even though they're Title I, we still have high expectations for them. Don't lower your expectations because people say we're imperfect. I came from a poor family. A lot of people do. We're able to achieve. With that being said, they still need parental support. I ask principals today to have a school council that should have a parent, business partners, and teachers. We need parents to be there to help us, I'm not going to say do the right thing, but to help us deliver the school that they want. I said earlier, I want us to tell the right story. You need to be involved so you can tell that story. If you're on the school council, if you're in the PTA, if you go to open house, you're going to hear what the school is doing with that $1 million that I just talked about. Go tell somebody. If you have ideas about how it can be used, share that with your principal. Make sure you're being heard. One of the problems with Title I schools is that principals complain about not having enough parental support. And I don't mean doing fundraisers. I mean coming to a parent conference, being there to show up for the school, have lunch with your child. Once we're able to let parents come back and do that. Be involved. Own the school. Own the school.
Awesome. So the next one is, there's actually a couple that ask this question, so I'm going to sort of put it into one, which is, how are teachers adjusting being back in the classroom with COVID, and what's been the most stressful part for the district for returning to the classroom since COVID?
I think teachers are adjusting well. Our board did a great job of allowing us time to prepare. You may remember that school was supposed to start back on August 10th. We delayed the opening of school until after Labor Day. That gave our teachers a chance to come out of their homes, get back into schools, see what it felt like, see the precautions that we're putting in place with signs and distancing and the new water fountains and those things. And when teachers were comfortable, when they met students, then the students could see the teachers were comfortable. And we had to reduce class, and we were virtual. That helped. When it was time to let students come back, teachers were ready for them, because I'm not going to say it was a joint decision, but they recognized that some learning loss was occurring. They had been seeing students online. They saw that attendance was not what it needed to be, and I was starting to get requests from teachers, please let them come back. So I think for the vast majority of teachers, they were ready for that process. And I think they continue to be. For those who had issues with their health, we gave them accommodations, and I think people saw that. The other thing that we did to make it easier for teachers was we tried to be transparent. If a person tested positive for COVID, we were able to say, here's how we're going to do contact tracing, here's who now needs to quarantine, these are the numbers of people who are positive, the number who are quarantining, and we were able to track that and share that information. I think that helped us build trust inside. For the district, the challenge has been trying to stay ahead of the curve, being able to see what's next. So for us, when we were having teachers doing that learning in August, we were already starting to think then about what are we going to do when it's time for them to come back. When we got to the spring and we said, okay, we're going to go from class size of 15 to 20, while we were implementing that, we're starting to plan for summer school and for the fall, making sure that we're able to provide the clarity that people need and be there to answer questions in a way. And truthfully, continue to have trust because people see we're doing our best.
That's great, and this is another one where we've gotten a few different questions that I'm going to sort of consolidate. So one person said that we focus a lot on students, but how we're supporting our teachers, and then someone else, I thought this was a really nice way of phrasing, so I'm going to say it the way they did, which is, what resources can the county provide teachers to help foster a more welcoming environment? I know many teachers aren't paid what they deserve. They deserve $1 million for helping to raise our next generation. But can they get a stipend or something to help them recoup some of the money they spend out of their own pocket on classrooms?
So, two things that I can think of. One, I'm very thankful to Governor Kemp and State School Superintendent for recognizing the hard work, not just of teachers, but of everyone in the system, especially at the school level, and giving a $1,000 bonus to them for what's been happening. I'm very thankful to our school board for saying, while the governor and the state school superintendent identified some, we wanted to go to all. And so that effort was made as well. I think that's one way of demonstrating that level of support. We're currently looking at our budget for next year, and the board is looking at a pay raise for our staff. That has not happened in a couple of years, and so I think they would much rather have an increase in their pay that also can go towards their retirement instead of getting a bonus, if you will. I know some people have said that they're going to take some of this money that President Biden just approved and make the bonus even bigger. I want to do something a little bit different, which is let's give teachers an opportunity to work more days. They may not like that part, but when they do, they're able to make more money, but it also helps our students. So it becomes a win for the teacher, a win for the students, and I think the whole system wins as well.
Great, and this is just our last question, which was someone who submitted this after listening to your talk a little bit, who said, I agree with your comments about what makes a school great. I want to know how you are tracking the positive leadership of principals, assistant principals, and teachers. Schools are falling apart because of these categories of leadership.
I'll be honest, I heard most of it, but I lost the middle part.
Oh, sorry.
So say it again.
So I want to know how you are tracking the positive leadership of principals, assistant principals, and teachers.
I missed the word tracking. So one of our strategic objectives is that we will grow from evaluations. That's a part of the very foundation of what we do, where we say we want to have people who are willing to learn and grow. We currently have a very formal process of evaluating leaders. When I was talking earlier about what a good leader is, I didn't just make those words up. The standards that we look at, that we evaluate leaders on is, are they able to create a vision? Are they able to have a mission that they can implement? Are they able to manage personnel? Are they able to manage organizational resources and operations? Can they create the climate that they want? Can they communicate? And are they a part of the community? All of that is what we measure. And it begins with, one, having every principal go through what we call a pre-conference, where they set goals for the year by sitting down with their supervisor. They go over the previous year and they set goals. They come back in the middle of the year and they do, at the beginning of the year, they also do a self-assessment on where they are. They come back in the middle of the year and they evaluate where they are in their plan. They also reassess where they are with the standards that we talked about. There's 8 of them. And then they come back at the end of the year and they get a summative. Throughout the year, they get observations. When I go out and if I see a principal doing something, I write it up, whether it's good or bad, and I share it with that supervisor. It's a constant process. What I tell our leaders is, you're interviewing every day. That interview every day is going to be as important as the formal interview you do when you want to get promoted. You just can't turn it on. And so, while I will say that we may have some principals, some leaders that this person may not have as much confidence in as I do, I will tell you that currently I am very pleased with the leaders that we have. I'm very pleased with the work that they're doing. I think they are growing, but I also think we have a system in place to help them if they want it and to help them move on if they don't.
Awesome. All right, so that was all of our questions, and just to close it out, to talk about trust and victory and progress, tons of folks have been tracking the comments on Facebook, and then also when other people have shared the video, and tons of people are commenting, victory and progress, VIP, VIP. So that's the comment that we've gotten most often.
Well, I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
So thank you so much for joining us, and it seems like people really enjoyed it.
Thank you for the questions, and thank you for the opportunity.
So thank you, Dr. Jones. And so for those of you who are watching at home, and those of you in the audience, as is typical with this series, Macon Masters, we usually have a conversation with the community online about a half hour after. So if you want to join a conversation with your neighbors about what you heard this evening, at about 10 of 9, we'll kind of convene on the Zoom site, and we'll have a conversation about what you think about what he had said, what you hope for the future of the schools, and whatever. So we hope you'll enjoy it, join us there rather. Hope you enjoyed tonight. The link for that is all over. It's on our website. It's on the page that you're probably watching this, if you're watching the video. If you're here in the audience, again, it's on those slips of paper that we handed out. So thank you again, Dr. Jones, and hope everyone has a safe and hopefully not too wet weekend. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you so much. I thought we got really nice questions.
Good.
I thought that they were all really thoughtful.
Well, I'll go see what my board member says.
Yes, it was just really pretty nice. So it's actually funny is that one thing that's kind of amazing is on the YouTube, which I'm gonna end.